right, so welcome everybody. This is the very first episode of the SAP CX AI Toolkit deep dives, and we're starting with a release recording because we just had a release, and I'm here with Ken Fajardo. Very cool. You're the VP of Product Management at Application AI. How are you doing?
I am doing all right.
Very cool. And I see you're not in the same room with me, so you're based in New York, I believe, right?
Correct. I'm based in East Coast US in New Jersey, about an hour outside of New York.
Okay, so we're recording across quite some time zone here. You know, New York, Munich, very cool. So Ken, I think for the very first recording that we're doing, I think we should also introduce the CX AI Toolkit in general a bit. So can you please give us a little intro to CX AI Toolkit, what it is all about essentially?
Sure.
I think
And I
we
have
prepared a slide for that, so we can just bring it on.
Perfect. So yeah, maybe just giving a little bit of background on the CX AI Toolkit, what was the vision for it, and kind of where we were going and where we are going with it. So for us, as part of CX, when we started this journey, we were looking at how can we bring generative AI to the customer experience portfolio in a way that was impactful, that was maybe different from other options that are out there where you kind of just have, one little AI widget for one application and that's it. And so in thinking in that way, one of the first things that we really wanted to explore and make sure was kind of a foundational piece for us was this concept of bringing in multiple data sources at the same time, right? If you are a salesperson, a service person, a commerce person, you probably have parts of information that are relevant to your job in Commerce Cloud, in your CRM, in your emails, in your OneDrive, in your SharePoint, kind of all over the place, right? And so if we're going to bring AI into this, it makes a ton of sense for it to be able to access those multiple places at the same time. That way, when it goes to generate an answer or a response, it's pulling off of the most up-to-date content or the most varied and wide-ranging content. That way, the output is better, faster, more up-to-date, etc.
Yeah, very cool. And actually, I would at this point already have one quick question. So what is exactly meant with Microsoft here? Is this talking about emails, for example, or what exactly do you pull from a Microsoft account?
Yeah, great question. So from Microsoft 365, we kind of connect to the parent account, and then we have access to a couple of different kind of key objects. So one is definitely emails. Two are Teams meetings and recordings/transcripts of those meetings. Three then is the personal OneDrive. So each user can give the toolkit access to their OneDrive for their files, and it's only for them. So from a security perspective, we follow all of Microsoft's kind of security rules and standards. So if I connect my OneDrive to the toolkit, only I can see outputs related to my data. So it's not like, if you and I are both connected, I can see your personal OneDrive or anything like that. But so OneDrive is there. The other thing that's there are shared folders. So if you have a SharePoint or something like that for your sales team with, marketing content, product information, etc., you can share a folder with everyone on the team and use that and connect it to the toolkit so that everyone on the team has access to that shared folder. Again, it has to be done on the Microsoft side because the permissions hold through, right? So if I don't have access to that shared folder, then Toolkit won't give me answers based on that data. But so those are kind of the main kind of key pieces for Microsoft 365. But related, though it's kind of separated here, when we say the next little section there, custom data sources, is actually a Microsoft product as well. So we also connect to the Azure Blob Storage. So we spin up an Azure Blob Storage for you, and then you can put in whatever files you want in there, right? PowerPoint files, documents, whatever else it might be. And so that's a little bit, more neutral and open for multiple file types. And so if you don't want to work off of things that are in your OneDrive or a shared folder, you have this Azure Blob Storage to drop, whatever you need the toolkit to access there.
Very cool. Thank you.
All right. Let me keep going here. So if we want to have those multiple data sources available for this new product to use, then you need this, what we call trust layer, right? And that's something you've probably heard if you've worked with SAP before. And so it's things like our taking care of integrations, taking care of security, data privacy, and even newer AI specific topics like ethics and avoiding bias and all of those different things. And so this blue kind of tab here is super important for us to make sure customers feel safe giving us access to their data.
Okay.
And if we build up one more, so if we've now have access to multiple data sources and we're accessing them in a trusted way, well, now we can bring in multiple AI services. And again, the concept and kind of the value here is that multiple at the same time. Because if you think about any given use case, right, if I just bring in one little AI service to try to solve a problem, well, yeah, it might solve the problem. But what if I can bring in multiple ones, right? And I'll give a great example. So when we generate product attributes or product descriptions, right, we can bring in an AI service that can review text. So it can look at existing descriptions, existing attributes, things like that, and then come up with some suggestions on what to generate. However, if a customer doesn't have a lot of content already, the other thing we could do is bring in a service to review with images, right? If all they have is the product images, well, great, let's bring in a separate service to review the image and make suggestions from a visual perspective, right? So now you can get an output if you combine those from all the text and from the images, right? And so that's the kind of thing we want to do, is not limit ourselves to one large language model or one tool to solve a problem. The more different services we can bring in to solve it, again, the better, more rich, more varied the outputs could be. So this concept of multiple AI services tied to multiple data sources, it just gives us, more and more flexibility in terms of how we can execute AI in a meaningful way.
Yeah, so it also really looks like CX AI Toolkit is a toolkit or a tool that was built across all the SAP CX ecosystem, really, right?
Yeah.
It really spans across commerce, sales, and service, and so on, basically, as you explained. Very cool.
Yep. No, absolutely. And like any product, right, we start small. I may not have access to every single data object, every single use case, etc. But even in the short time that we've existed, we've already kept adding every single month more and more and more, right? So we'll only continue to get stronger there. All right, just to kind of finish up this slide, a couple of other key pieces. So if we can combine those things at the bottom, the multiple AI services, multiple data sources in a trusted way, well, now we can release sort of a packaged, product, right? And that's an important thing for us, right? Because, this is called the CX AI Toolkit, but the reality is it's not a tool for developers, right? This is meant to be business user tooling. And so when I say we package these things, we really are building tools for the business users to start using right away. And so we have, AI tools for them to generate content or help them write emails or whatever those things might be. We have packaged tools for building out AI agents, right? So helping to automate things in their business. And then we also have some other cool stuff around intelligent Q&A, finding answers and information from across those different data sources and all that stuff. So that's kind of the core product coming out of all of the things below, is this package of business user features and functions that leverage all that great technology underneath.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So I think that was a great intro. Let's remove the slide here and let's start chatting about the new release that just came out. So what do you think are the highlights of that release?
Sure. So what we're talking about today is actually our 2504 release. Oddly enough, because actually I was sick and we're a little late. We have another release coming in another week or two, so we'll have to record another video soon. But for our 2504 release, some of the kind of like really cool highlights, I think top of mind for me is our custom AI agent builder. So previous to this, we had some AI agents that were kind of pre-packaged, right? We have three key ones. We had a knowledge base article agent, we had a service classification agent, and we had an intelligent question and answer agent. And while they're automated and while they're configurable, you can give them more instructions, they kind of already had a predefined job, right? And so what we're releasing here with this custom AI agent builder, there's no predefined task, there's no predefined role. You can really give it whatever instructions you want from the very beginning. And so that, of course, opens up the doors for, kind of whatever use cases make most sense for your business, given whatever data the CX AI Toolkit has access to. So that'd be number one, is the custom
Sounds
AI
very
tool.
exciting. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, no, and maybe we'll have some time to kind of poke around there in a minute and show you it live. So that's number one. The second thing that I think is worth highlighting, and we'll try to show a little today, is the shopping assistant configuration and management in the UI. So for those that may not have seen it before, the shopping assistant is for our e-commerce platform. And so the idea is when you go on the e-commerce platform, you're shopping, you kind of have this AI assistant that can help you find the right product. Now, up until today, in order to configure that and change the settings, you had to do everything through APIs. But again, that's not our goal with the toolkit, right? The goal with the toolkit is to make this business user friendly. And so what we've done now is release the very first version of our UI within the interface to manage those shopping assistant agents, change some of the settings, etc. Again, what you'll see today is probably just the very beginning of it, right? We'll have more and more configuration as time goes on.
Yeah, very cool. So I think let's dive in. Should we start with the agents then?
Sure, absolutely.
Perfect. Then let me also bring up that screen here. And yeah, please take it from here.
Sure, and let's give it a second here to refresh since we were chatting for a bit. So, what I want to show as a starting point here, I've logged into our CRM environment. This is our Cloud for Customer, but the features I show you here would work for Cloud for Customer or our Sales and Service V2 CRM as well. But what I want to show you is how our existing agents, so those three I mentioned earlier, how they work today. And then that way you also get a sense of when you go to build a custom agent, what are some of the possibilities? How does this execute, etc. So we're logged in here. We're logged in as a service agent. In this case, my name is Connie Whitley. We were just talking about how she seems like the happiest service agent we've ever seen. But I log in, maybe it's the first time in the morning, I have my cup of coffee. And because I'm a service agent, my life revolves around checking the tickets, resolving tickets, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this box here that says tickets assigned to me. And all this functionality is normal CRM stuff. And I can come here and look at, oh, wow, overnight there was a ton of tickets that came in. But eventually I might find a particular ticket where I say, oh, that's interesting, an inquiry about upgrade options for a particular product. So I can click on that to dig a little deeper. And what will load is the ticket itself, right? And I'll see here the description. I'll see this probably coming from a form online or something like that, where the customer says, hi there, I'm looking to upgrade the existing multi-eco 11i pumps that I have in my plant. Could you share more information about what are the newer models? What are their features? How does it compare, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the ticket that comes in. Again, it's morning for Connie. And so if I had to do this normally, I'd say, okay, wow, okay, now I got to go look up the 11AI pump, get information about that, look up what's the newest version, get information about that, spend some time writing some sort of comparison, right? So it'd be kind of an involved process and take some time. Instead, now with our agents, what happens is when a ticket is created, an agent can automatically check and see, hey, is there something I can help with here, right, depending on the job the agent has. And so to make this a little more obvious, what we've done is we've created a little tab over here that says AI Case Insights. And so we'll give this a second here. But when it starts loading, you'll see two of our different agents have given their input here. So the first one is what we call our service classification agent. So based on the ticket and the content of the ticket, right, it's asking about a product, it has some questions, etc. This service classification agent goes in, checks tickets, and decides, is this a billing type issue? Is it a product type issue? Again, whatever the different rules are for your organization and your service team. So it can then intelligently assign it and say, hey, this is a product support question. And it is an inquiry, right? There's questions, they need more information, all that. And so based off of that, then you can assign it to the right team, to the right region, whatever the rules are for your business. So service classification using generative AI, very, very powerful, number one. Number two, we have our smart Q&A or intelligent Q&A. What this agent does is whenever a ticket or a case comes in, it reviews it and identifies any questions that are being asked. If you remember earlier, it was asking about, hey, I have this product. What's the newer product? How do they compare? Right. So there was kind of several questions in there. And what the agent did here was it found that question, but then it also goes and checks its data sources to try to find answers ahead of time. Right. So that way, Connie doesn't have to go read these questions and understand and then go try to find data in a bunch of different places. The agent has already done a lot of the work for her before she even logged in for the day. And so you'll see here, just to kind of see how it works in action, you'll see, hey, the latest model is the 33i. Here's some of the detailed comparison between that one and the new one. And so it talks about energy efficiency, sustainability, blah, blah, blah. It gives me basically exactly what the customer asked for is now available here.
Perfect. So I think this could be so valuable also for new employees, right? Of a service team, for example, who doesn't yet know the multi-echo 11i, for example, right? Or the 33i or whatever.
No,
that's one ton actually. Yeah.
No, and that's very true. And there are some industries and some businesses where they hire service or sales agents kind of on a seasonal basis, right? They have a busy season, and so the team grows, and it's a bunch of new people, right? Or a bunch of college students or whatever that don't know the information, that don't know the things very quickly. And so being able to leverage AI to give them a shortcut, a heads up, etc., makes it that much stronger, right? And kind of to that point, one other small thing to notice here is not only does it give you an answer, but it also shows you the sources, right? Again, AI sometimes is a little scary for people. They don't fully trust it. And so we wanted to make sure if you get an answer, you can also trace it back to, hey, we pulled this from this particular document, or even maybe referring to another ticket in the system because we've already answered this question, we've already solved this problem, whatever, right? So absolutely very, very flexible in terms of usage here.
Very cool. So I think we all want to see how it's being set up now, right?
Yeah, no, great segue.
Let's switch to that, I guess, yeah.
Yep, let's do it. So let me pull up our admin here. Okay, so what you see here now is I'm logged in to the CX AI Toolkit administration team screen. And actually, I'm in the wrong one. Hold on. Sorry, too many demos going all at once. Okay. So here we're logged into the Toolkit admin screen for that environment you were just seeing. We'll kind of go back here to the home screen for a second. And so here's where you would go if you wanted to use a full screen version of a lot of our tools, or you wanted to use some of the admin pieces. And so for our purposes today, we want to look at configuring, managing, editing AI agents. So there's a button here at the bottom of this menu. So I'll click on that. And so first thing you'll see, here's a list of all of the different active or already created agents, right? And so you'll actually see here, we already have a service classification agent. That's the one that did that first section that said, hey, this is a product type thing and it's an inquiry. And you see that that's active. And then we see the second one here, Q&A agent. And again, same thing, that's active. So let's take a quick look at how those work. Because I think it's important to kind of get a feeling for these before we talk about the new feature, which is the custom agents. So I'll click on the Q&A agent because that's the one we saw most, and I can kind of view the configuration of this. So you'll see here, there's kind of multiple steps for setting up our agents, right? You got to give it a name, you got to give it a description, you got to determine what triggers it. So when does this kick off and try to do its job? In this case, it's going to look at our Cloud for Customer system. It's going to look at tickets, and it's going to kick off anytime a ticket is created, right? Now, this is kind of a simplistic starting point for us. Over time, we'll have much more triggers and things like that, so we can make it more flexible. When do these things execute? But for this use case, makes perfect sense. On create, that's when you want it to trigger. Now, once you determine your trigger, then you actually go into, okay, it triggers, what does it do, right? And so this main section is where you see that. Now, here's an important thing, and you'll see the difference when we go to look at the custom one. Our existing agents, so the Q&A agent, service classification agent, knowledge base article creation agent, they already come with sort of pre-packaged instructions. So they already have a job and instructions that they're supposed to do. And so you can't come in and try to completely change it into something else, because we've already said, no, 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 this is the agent, this is its job. Now, a little further down, we'll skip a section for a second, you'll see we can give it additional instructions, right? So as it's finding questions and answers, we have a bunch of rules for content. Hey, remove unnecessary spaces. Don't give me too much information. Dynamically remove the least important things, blah, 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 right? So we, for these agents that already existed, they kind of have a predefined job, but you can give them a little bit more instruction on top of that to make it most relevant for your business. But it's still finding questions and answers. That's what it does. Or it's still classifying tickets. That's what it does. So these are the first three original agents already having jobs. I'll pause here. Comments or questions on this?
Yeah, Ken. So I would say, if I understand it correctly, for these existing agents, you don't need to be a prompt engineer, more or less, right? Because you start with some existing prompting instructions, right? And you just fill the blanks, more or less, right?
Absolutely correct, right? And that's the goal with a lot of our tools, right? Now, obviously, like anything else, you might want to come in here and, let's say you wanted to find questions and answers, but for additional instructions, right now, it's mostly about formatting in this example. But maybe you say, hey, if it's a legal answer, don't give an answer. Tell them to call us. Or if it's a billing question, don't give an answer. Tell them to call our billing department, right? So it's just like how you would give instructions to a intern who just joined that's going to be helping customers or whatever, right? You type in natural language, tell them what to do, and then you test these things, right? So one other piece here we have, after you build all the rules, we have a playground. So you can go and enter a ticket and kind of do a trial run, right? And that way, if your instructions, you meant it one way, but the system is interpreting it another, you can go back and say, that's not exactly what I wanted. Let me go back to my settings and change these instructions, right? So you definitely don't have to be a prompt engineer at all. But even so, we give you the ability to kind of play with it and tweak it, so that you can get the outputs you expect.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of the existing one. I'm not going to go through all the pieces here. We can maybe do a separate session, right? But other things to just be aware, you can set up filters for the different records you process. You can determine what are the data sources it goes to check if it's trying to find answers in this case. And then obviously, where do you want to output that to? In our example, we were outputting it to a field in the CRM so that the sales or service agent could see it. But again, you can kind of determine these things. So this is how it exists today, kind of has a predefined job, but then on top of that job, you can kind of tweak it to your business, tell it how it should answer questions, what things to avoid, et cetera, et cetera. If I go back though, so let's go back to our AI agents, and I come over here to create an AI agent. So you'll see here we have our three existing agents, so knowledge base article, Q&A, and service classification. But we also have this new custom agent builder. So if I click on that, and we'll kind of just walk through some of the steps to give you an idea. Again, the process is somewhat similar. Got to give it a name. We'll say test 2, right? And give it a description. And these things are important if you have multiple agents running. You want to be able to tell, oh, this one covers this region or this topic. This one covers that, right? So it seems simple, but can be important if you have a bunch of agents, triggering. Now, once you set up the agent, then you say, okay, what are the triggers, right? So again, like we talked about before, when does this go and do its job? Again, in this environment, we're plugged into Cloud for Customer, but if you had Sales and Service V2 or something else, right, over time, that'll be more flexible. And then in terms of entities here, right, we have access to the ticket object or the opportunity object. So it's going to check either tickets or opportunities. Let's say for our example, we want to look at opportunities. And same thing, hey, whenever an opportunity is created, we want to do something, right? So we hit next. And so here's where now you kind of have an open canvas, right? So before we had instructions that were already pre-filled, right? It said, hey, you are a assisting agent that finds questions and answers. And there were like 7 different steps to, how we told it to find those questions and answers. Here you have a blank page, right? If we're looking at opportunities as they're created, Maybe we want to, create a specific type of summary that our sales agents like to get. Or maybe we like to come up with a set of recommended next steps that are best practices based on how our senior sales reps have seen success in the past. Or again, whatever the use case is, you come in here and you write those instructions from scratch. Does that make sense?
Sounds very powerful and also a bit risky, actually, to be honest with you, right? So that's great power comes.
No, and that's actually an excellent point, right? Both in terms of what you write here, and that's why we have the playground, so you can test. Right? You don't want to just set it loose and then suddenly, when everyone creates a new opportunity, you get a bunch of random outputs that you've never tested before. So the playground is a very important step before you turn anything live. But yeah, write your own instructions. And then the other thing that's actually really important to pay attention to is filtering records. Right. Sometimes, and maybe less so for opportunities, but for tickets, if you have an online web form or something like that, where tickets just come in constantly, maybe you don't want the agent to review every single ticket, right? Or for every single region or whatever else. And so filtering your records, making sure you only have the AI agent run on things where it's providing value or it makes sense, can also be super important. You don't want to be constantly crunching a bunch of stuff for no reason.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So that was custom agents, right? And thank you so much for also an intro to the existing agents that we now got actually. Would it be the right time to switch to the next demo, which is about a shopping assistant configuration? Sure,
absolutely. And actually, there was a little view there you saw. Let me switch to an environment that's plugged into commerce. Yeah, if I come back here to another toolkit environment that's plugged into commerce this time instead of C4C, when I go to AI agents, and ignore this little error, I broke something earlier, so that's on me. But now you'll see here I have a lot more different agents in this environment. And when I go to create an AI agent, something you might have seen in kind of the last screen was there's a box here for shopping agent. Now, for those, again, that may not be familiar with our shopping assistant, again, on the front end, it's asking the shopper questions, or the shopper can ask it questions. Hey, I'm looking for a dress for my wife, or more B2B, I'm looking for a particular replacement part for this large machine, and it needs to meet these specifications, blah, blah, blah. So previously, if you wanted to configure the shopping assistant, you had to do everything through APIs, and I think I mentioned this earlier. And so today, with this last release, what we've done is started our path on bringing those configurations into the UI. That way, a business user can come in and manage this themselves, right? And the process for this is very similar to the other agents, right? So if I click on this shopping agent and I hit next, again, give it a name, give it a description in case you have multiple agents for multiple sites or multiple regions or whatever the case might be. You'll see here the source. So this time it's commerce, and because it's commerce, we now have sort of different options for building out this agent. You'll see here it's obviously plugging into our product catalog, but you have to pick which one, right? So this will pull directly from your Commerce Cloud environment. It'll read and say, okay, within that Commerce Cloud environment, I see a fashion product catalog, an automotive product catalog, again, whatever's available there. And so you as a user, depending on where you're putting this shopping agent, right, you have to pick, hey, this is going to access our fashion product catalog, right? So it can answer questions related to those products. So I'll hit next here. And then here, you basically decide what's the initial message as it engages with users. And then do you want to turn on the ability for it to expose pricing information, yes or no? Again, some businesses are more sensitive about that. So they just want to help the customer find the right product. Pricing happens later. Or if you have prices already, it can interact, someone can interact with the agent and get pricing information. And so these are kind of the first steps, right, in being able to create the agent, set up some of the options, etc. Obviously, there's a lot more coming. And in fact, with our release coming in the next week or two, there's more features coming to the shopping assistant, which would require more configuration as well. So a lot more coming here. This is just kind of the first step in making it available at all.
Yeah. I think this will be exciting to keep track of actually, and then also see how it relates to, let's say, an UI implementation, right? And see how it affects the shopping assistant. You know, when you click the pricing here and unclick it, basically how it affects it, and then see it basically in a demo. So that's very cool. Thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of concludes our first episode, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of other things that came out. Some things came out related to our APIs and whatever, but that's not as fun to show, right? So if anyone is interested, you can always check out our help page. If you go to sap.com, look up the CX AI Toolkit. There's a What's New section, so you could see what are all the things we've released there and get all the information on the latest.
Perfect, and we'll put exactly that link into the show notes, but also into the comments of that YouTube video in the end. Perfect. Well, then thanks so much, Ken. That was amazing to talk to you. First episode, there was straightforward, honest demos basically here, and I hope we can continue doing this many more times. Very cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, yeah? Bye-bye.
Take care.